In this YouTube video, what you're going to experience is what may lay underneath our anxiety. When we have anxiety, from a Buddhist perspective, they call it the monkey mind. Sometimes I add to it, my monkey minds have got tin cans rattling in the cage. Have a look at this video. Deep down, you may touch and experience what this person experienced in his sandplay work that was underpinning his anxious mind. Thank you. Play work, what we're going to explore is the underpinnings to a person's anxiety. If we look, he chose a number of symbols, and sometimes working with men, asking them to do symbols and sandplay work is not easy for them. There's a level of resistance because we men have historically intellectualized our emotional landscape, our feeling landscape. And by using symbols and sandplay work, the thinking mind, the intellectual conversation, is changed by placing your hands in the sand, choosing figurines, which can be metaphors for the inner self, the inner emotions, the inner landscape, the inner emotional landscape. And to this person's credit, he persevered with the resistance and chose these various symbols. That the shell, the angel, represent the spiritual side. The baby creature in the middle there, we discover that that's pretty powerful towards the end of the sandplay work. And the little rabbit, I use that little rabbit, that gets used a lot. Hands out. Not sure, and especially for men, that when the intellectual mind, our intelligent mind, the thinking mind, can't put or connect the dots to the emotional, what's going on inside, the emotional inner landscape, the intellectual brain just cannot compute. 1 + 1's not equaling 2, the black and white process that we men use a lot, the right, wrong, it's just not working, it's not being able to compute it. And after doing some meditation for some time, it was still finding it difficult for the meditation to work on the anxious mind or the anxiety that was coming up. And as a result of that, there was this old figurine that represents the tiredness, and then there's the frustration that goes with it in the angry symbol there, and that little flat-out duck is that's the fun time. And in the back there was the connections, the need for connections, the connections to his young son, and the need for other connections. And because of all this anxiety that's going on, he then placed this symbol. It's like a block. And, he sat with it, and I unfortunately needed to go on nature called. So as I left to go, he then placed this symbol on top of the tired looking figurine, and that was really very moving. And we sat in the silence for a few minutes of silence, and just in the silence, it's in that stillness, it's allowing ourselves to connect into our bodies and connect to the feelings that underpin this. And then once he did that, he then picked another symbol to represent the sadness, the flatness. And he then started focusing on this, the inner need, the sensitive side of himself. And then chose this symbol and suggested that there is no trust. And he placed that symbol on the other side of here. And it didn't fall over at the time, but it was there. And in sitting with it for a few more moments, just watching his breathing in the silence, it's like allowing ourselves to connect to the inner emotional landscape. And then when looking at that, the baby figurine might represent our sensitive self, that deep vulnerability within ourselves. He responded with terror. Terror. And that was really the point, where he was able to connect to the underpinnings of his anxiety, this overarching anxiety that he's been experiencing for a number of months. And in reflection, he then shared that it's the helplessness. And at some level, deep inside us, we're all experiencing powerlessness, helplessness, hopelessness at some stage and points in time. And being able to be present to that is not easy. A lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, very, very scary, very, very uncomfortable. And it throws the intellectual mind out of whack. The reptilian brain is programmed to protect. When there's fear, terror, the reptilian brain will kick in and automatically will start to shield up, defend, e.g. that lack of trust, the armouring up. A whole number of different manifestations can interplay here. And then if we look back at the symbols of the beach, the shell represents the freedom of the beach, the angel, that's the spiritual self. If we look at where the angel is pointing, the angel is pointing away, not within perhaps. Again, that's my interpretation and may not necessarily reflect that of the person that I was working with. And it's a really powerful process that here's his intellectual mind. It's, it just cannot find the answers. 1 + 1's not equaling 2. And there's a lethargy, a tiredness, getting up and can't figure this out, can't work it out. And maybe the point is the working out, is it about learning to be present to whatever emotional energy is within inside ourselves at that point in time. Yes, when we're feeling terror and fear, that can be a trauma. An awesome trauma to have to face. We naturally are going to want to avoid or disassociate from our traumas. But by bringing gentle presence to each trauma as we experience them, we might then be titrating the energy, titrating that felt sense, and layer by layer, how can we bring caring, nurturing energy, because what that trauma needed back then, or whatever it is, trauma, wounds, whatever we want to call it had a need, it had needs, and those needs may not necessarily have been met. And that's not necessarily our parents' fault or whoever's fault it is. That's just how it is in life, in this human form. And learning to be present just in this moment. It was really powerful to just see it. And as we sat with the helplessness, the terror of the helplessness, then the emotions, the body language, how the body expresses that is not necessarily through words. Yes, we can express it intellectually, but that felt sense, that vulnerability started to come through in the language of the body through its tears. And these are healing tears. They're not easy, they can be very painful. But it's allowing ourselves gently and softly to titrate, to meet the trauma. The trauma's within us. How do we reassure it? And then if we look at the background there, the father-son, it's how do we begin? We give our love to our children. We love them we just give oodles amount of love. How much love might need to come back to face that trauma that exists within himself. Very powerful, and I hope in this video and other men and women may relate to some of the archetypal experiences that as human beings we all experience. We all have unique individual lives and stories, but underneath those there are archetypal experiences that we all have. And it's how do we meet this? And I really appreciate the courage and the determination that this man has, and the courage to share this story, his Symbols and Sandplay story, with other men and women. And I really appreciate and honour his courage and respect him for that. Namaste. Thank you for watching this YouTube clip. If you related to what was expressed in it, what was found underneath the anxiety, share it with your friends because they too may be able to relate to it. And don't forget, please like and subscribe and support us out. Thank you.